I'm Megan Wiss. I am the Enterprise Service Operations Leader for Hylant, which is a really crazy title that probably no one's ever heard of before. It basically means that I am involved in all of our strategic initiatives on the EV side, trying to bring them to fruition. For those of you who aren't familiar, Hylant is a retail broker. We have about 1,200 employees currently, mostly in the Midwest and Southeast. Of those employees, about 350 of them are employee benefits team members. So just to give you a little perspective. For those of you who read the description, I don't want to disappoint anyone from the start. I do not have any magic bullets or secret sauces I'm going to be handing out today to fix everything that comes in Q4. More what we're going to talk about is a process for your team to create their own special sauce that can help make things a little better year over year. So that's more what today is all about. But how many of us have felt like this guy in the middle of peak season, right? So I asked Copilot, tell me the headlines and some key stats about January 2026 group health plan renewals. And this is what it came up with. And I'm guessing most of us don't need a reminder of what this past peak season was like, but huge increases, right? Carriers were later than normal coming out. Clients got these huge increases late and struggled to make a decision on what to do. To be honest, I've been in this industry for 23 years, and I don't know if I'm willing to say it's the worst I've ever seen, but it's up there. It was really rough this past year. Yet, we made it, and here we are. We're all still here, right? We signed up to do it again, and it's coming. It's gonna come every single year, and we just have to decide how we're gonna deal with it every year. So if we keep doing things the same way we've always done them and expect different results, we're gonna be disappointed, right? That's not gonna happen. But we can't fix it all. There are parts of this that we just don't control. And we really need to focus on those areas that we do control. We need to work with our teams and listen to them to help have them be part of the solution for us. So again, we don't control all of it. And we have to really think about what areas we do control, what areas we have some influence over, and then we just got to own the things that are beyond our control. So my recommendation the first step to be thinking about how do I handle the Q4 madness, how do I handle peak season, is right after it is done. Pull your entire team together for a group reflection. And that means everyone on the team, from the person that maybe is printing the benefit guides to your producers that are selling. We need that feedback from everyone. Personally, when I pull them all together, I normally require us to start with the positive. It can be a challenge, but I literally go around the room and say, everyone tell me one thing, just one thing that went well. Whether it was a new template, a new process, something that helped you manage your volume, maybe a teammate stepped up and helped with something, whatever it is, what is one thing that went well, or at least was a little better than last year? Starting with the positive sets the tone for this discussion with your team. Because it's really easy, I don't know what happened there. It's really easy to just get mired down into the negativity, right? Even once we're through all of it. But then obviously we need to turn to talk about all the challenges. And there's a lot of challenges. So when we talk about the issues and challenges, we need to make sure we're focusing on the processes or the templates or the timelines and not the people. If you slip into focusing on the people, you're gonna have a whole other situation on your hands. When there are people challenges or conflict, we need to address those immediately. We don't wait till after the fact, right, to get after fixing that. And that's not a group discussion either. That's something you want to be having one-on-one with the team members. So sometimes we need to remind each other, but focus on those processes. And as you identify problem areas, just create a list, right? Whiteboard it, whatever it takes, create that list of what were our problem areas. And your list of challenges and my list of challenges are probably going to be a little different. I guarantee there's some overlap, right? 30% renewal increases as a norm would probably be on everyone's list. But then once you have your list of challenges, look at a graphic like this. What is in our control? What pieces and parts, what of this list is within our power to have some control over? And then have the entire group brainstorm ideas around how could we improve that part or that challenge. Also identify the areas that you have some degree of influence on. So think about ways the carriers maybe made it a little bit more challenging, whether it's the timing of renewals, the information that was released, something along those lines. When you identify something where it's within your circle of influence, talk about who can own providing that feedback in a constructive way to your partners in order to help have an overall better process for everyone. And then, of course, we need to acknowledge those items that are just outside of our control and commiserate a little, but then move on and make sure we're focusing really on those things that we can change. If this is done right, a good team reflection process can actually be an excellent team building session. You acknowledge we're all in it together. We're working toward a solution that will work for all of us. Maybe through your brainstorming of ideas, I have no idea why it keeps going backwards. Sorry guys, this is a fun little trick. Maybe through your brainstorming of ideas, you come up with some compromise where team members are given a little, taken a little, right, figuring out how to work together better. And that's ultimately what we want with team building. Personally, I normally, this can be a hefty meeting. When I've had one of these meetings, I normally do a fun team building afterwards too. Take them all to an escape room, something like that, where you can work on communication. We've painted, we had a carrier rep once come in and teach us how to arrange flowers. I am awful at that. Don't ever ask me to do that. But it was fun. We got to learn about it. So we had this big discussion. It was a great team bonding, and then we had a little fun together too. It's a good strategy. As leaders, sometimes we fall into thinking that we have to solve all the problems and have all the answers. And if that's your perspective on leadership, it's probably pretty rough to feel like you're succeeding. Ultimately, we should be creating a team environment where everyone is focused on solutions. So never pretend to have all the answers. It can be hard to stand in front of your team and be like, look, I don't know how we solve that, to openly admit that. But if you're willing to say it in front of your team, they're gonna start to become willing to say that and then have a healthy dialogue about it. Make sure you're always asking for their feedback when there are challenges, but the trick there is you have to then stop and listen to what they say and be ready to address it. My other suggestion would be, because I guarantee there's going to be a doozy of a suggestion at some point, right? That one that you're sitting there going, I'm not even sure what to say. You have to be really careful not to discount ideas too quickly, or that well's going to dry up fast. You've got to figure out a way to go, oh, that's creative. Let's think about ways we might be able to implement something, right? Come up in your head with what that answer is going to be when someone throws out a crazy solution, because you never know, that crazy solution that you were like, no way, could lead to dialogue on the team that actually leads to a brilliant idea that helps solve a challenge that you're having. Ultimately, we want to coach our teams to have healthy disagreements and provide constructive feedback to each other. Because when we sit at our desks and stew, that's not good for anyone. We need to get to the point that people can disagree but still commit to the agreed upon solution. If I have sat in the discussion and I provided my idea for a solution and I feel like I was heard, but the team decides to go in another direction, I have to be okay with that and commit to what was decided. And the only way you can make that work is if people feel like they're heard in their ideas. So that's really a key to getting to that adoption, because we can have all the best solutions in the world, but if we can't get it adopted, right, that's a challenge. The other thing to keep in mind is that if we are talking about challenges without presenting any solutions, we are just complaining. Sometimes we all need it, right? You need to release the vent, get it off your mind, say whatever it is, and move on. Again, that's best done on a one-on-one or a smaller, not big group meetings. But ultimately, if you aren't focused on solutions, you really are just complaining about something. And we always want to be focused on those solutions. Because after all, if you aren't part of the solution, you are part of the problem. Exactly. So after we have talked through the problems and we've worked together on brainstorming some ideas for a solution, now it's time to refine our processes. This is where I like to look at a start, stop, continue, or a stoplight analysis, right? If you've looked at things and you've talked about problems and you've identified areas that suck the team's time, that don't bring value to your clients, or that hinder efficiency, you need to stop them immediately. And that's obvious, right? How many people, and I apologize guys, I was trained as a teacher, so this can be a little interactive. How many people in the room have heard the words, but we've always done it that way? Only one, come on. Not all of us? Come on. We've always done it that way. To be honest, if you've done something the same way for 20 years, there's probably a problem right there, right? With how much we have advanced in technology and all the new regulations, we constantly have to be looking at what are we doing that we just need to stop doing. It's not necessary anymore. And then, of course, we need to think about those things that we continue doing. So if you go back to, I always start with the positive, make sure you're taking notes on those too, because whatever you do, don't change something that breaks something that's working for your team. Make sure that those things that are working stay as they are, because we don't want to lose last year's success. We want to keep getting a little better every single year. And then, of course, you want to really look at those things. What do we need to start doing or change? Which of the ideas we brainstormed are bubbling up to the top, and we're going to implement those ideas? We need to, when we decide that, as a group, and I would still say this is a group project, which of these ideas are we going to implement? We then need to define who owns that. And again, I would challenge you as leaders, do not need to own that implementation or figuring out the new template or the new SOP. Get a group of people together that are intimately involved in that process and have them be the ones to come back with those ideas. You might need some guidance along the way, but get them involved in really coming up with being the owners and coming back to the group with here's the suggested path forward. And key, set a deadline, right? We all get back to our desks. We have 50 emails, 4 phone calls that we need to return, 10 client meetings we need to get ready for. Like, set a deadline that you're going to come back and talk about this. Set a way that you're going to test. Who's going to be involved with testing? How are we going to try this out? And then probably this piece does fall on our shoulders as leaders. You need to come up with a strategy on how to operationalize whatever new template, new process comes up. Because if your team puts in the time and effort to figure out something new that they really think is going to work, and then no one ever does anything with it, there is nothing more frustrating. And the next time you look for volunteers, no one's going to raise their hand and offer to be a part of it. So how are you going to roll that out, and how are you going to gain adoption? And we need to work with our leadership to figure out, because the answer in one office to another or one team to another may not be the same if this is a broader strategy. So before I go on to talking about putting in, kind of implementing our solutions, I'd be remiss not to talk about, right, technology and the application of technology. As you think about process improvements, we don't just want to think about how our team can do things differently. We also want to think about how we can use our tools and resources differently, or maybe what tools we need to add to the mix. And when you mention tools and resources and process improvement in the same sentence, everyone jumps to AI, right? This stat kind of cracks me up a little bit. Of course, the AI industry tells us everyone's using AI, right? That's no big surprise. I'm surprised it's not higher than this. This just happened to be the source that I found. There are a lot of people looking at AI and considering AI, and there is a place for it. But I would challenge you, don't consider AI and solutions until you know what problem you're trying to solve. You can end up so far down a rabbit hole chasing these pretty butterflies that are super cool, and there's a lot of really cool things out there, but it may have nothing to do with the challenges for your team, and you are just wasting your time. Because if you implement a solution that doesn't address your team's challenges, it becomes one more thing that they have to figure out how to use. You've got to make sure you know your problems and then look for tech solutions that can address that problem. Otherwise, you could probably have a full-time position just vetting AI solutions. Could be anyway. Don't misunderstand me. There really is an application for tech in all of this. There's a lot of, in the EB world, we move information from one spot to 18 other spots manually, right? We just do. We move information around a lot. That is low-hanging fruit to have a tech solution to it. But don't consider those solutions until you really know what your problems are. I can tell you at Hylant, we looked at where is our team spending a lot of time, and whether it was our internal team or even our partners at ReSource Pro, where are we getting bottlenecked at? And we said, you know what? Benefit guides, spreadsheeting, document review. All of which are predominantly saying, find the document or find the information in a carrier document and put it into a format that I can actually use in front of a client, because our agency management system doesn't do that. Those were our problem areas. And then we started talking to solutions, and someone on our team calls it kissing frogs. We kissed a lot of frogs along the way, trying to find solutions that could work for our problem. And we actually did. I think it was our 8th attempt, maybe, at going through the process of talking to vendors. We found one that can produce a deliverable that meets our needs. And that is huge. Now we're in the implementation stage, so I can't tell you yet, but we've gone past proof of concept to implementation. It is moving very quickly towards a solution, but what works for us isn't going to work for you. It's not about my solution, it's about how we get there to find the right solution. So as you start thinking about technology solutions, the other thing that you want to consider is there are some difficult conversations to be had with your teams. We sit at conferences like this and see the power of AI and know it's not going to replace people. But a lot of times our team members that are sitting at the desk every day start to get worried when you talk about automation and, oh, it's going to do away with my job. And no matter how many times we say it's not going to eliminate your job, right? They worry about that. So you have to make sure you keep saying what your views are around AI's role in your business. At Hylant, we absolutely focus on having a human in the loop. Tech isn't going to replace anyone on our team, but rather take mundane but yet necessary tasks off their plate and allow them to focus on more strategic client-facing work. That is our view of where technology has a role in our operations. But that's still a dedicated or a delicate conversation. If you say it wrong, if I say, it's going to take this stuff off your plate so that you can do more important work, what does that imply about the work you've been doing for the past 10 or 20 years, right? You're diminishing the work that they have been doing if you don't say that message right. So really, really important to think about how you make that statement so that you don't make your employees' work that they take pride in doing and have done a really good job at and diminish it to be unimportant or no longer valuable. Also keep in mind that not everything has to be as complicated as AI. right? You start getting into large language models and all this stuff that I really couldn't, I'm not an AI person, I couldn't tell you all of the different types. But there are some things, some solutions where you can automate that is easier than AI. And when I think of AI, I think of something that's going to train itself, right? It's going to learn over time. There are a lot of things we do in our industry that is click here, move this thing here, right? It's just very do this, then this, then this. Often those types of processes can be solved with robotic process automation, or RPA. Anyone ever heard of a bot? How many of you have bots running to support your business right now? Good. Few hands. We got some. There is a solution, and sometimes bots, they may not be tackling big processes, right? It might be a very specific thing, but they seem to be quicker to operationalize than trying to get a big platform that's going to attack all of this stuff. There are vendors you can work with, right? Or even many companies have internal resources that can write some basic bots and get them implemented. But we also need to think about, when we think about our tools and resources, there's all the tech solutions, but then there's also our business partners. And we need to leverage, just like we tell our clients, leverage us as the benefits experts. We need to look at our vendors or business partners and let them be the experts in their area of expertise. How often do we discuss our challenges, our business challenges with our vendors? Collaborate with them. Ask for their ideas. Be open to their recommendations. As you build that partnership, start to expect those vendors that you work with to come to you with suggestions and value those suggestions as possible ways to improve. Just like we want to move our client relationships to a true partnership, we should want to do the same with our vendors. Move them to true business partners that are understand our goals and are aligned with our needs to help support us. So ReSource Pro is a strong partner for our EB team at Hylant. While we've worked together for, I think we figured out yesterday, it's 11 years now that we've been partners. In the past couple of years, we've put a lot of effort in being more collaborative in our partnership and working to figure out ways to transfer more work from our team to ReSource Pro. This graphic shows some of that success. It's just our overall task utilization. We successfully last year moved over 15,000 tasks that had to be done from our team to ReSource Pro. Now I know you can do some funny stuff with math. I will tell you we did not do any acquisitions. We did not do any crazy increase to our staffing numbers. We did have some growth, obviously, but nothing that would lead to this type of increase. A couple of things that would have led to part of it. We did implement a new benefit guide, so a totally new format, and ReSource Pro was instrumental in getting data converted into that new format. And 2 years ago, we did migrate agency management systems, so that also played a bit of a part. But mostly, the increase was just due to improved communication and partnership and sharing ideas. We have over 20 unique processes that ReSource Pro helps our team with. Many have to do with data input into our agency management system, and likely that is where we saw the biggest increase last year. 2 years ago, we changed from Benefit Point to Epic, and in that process, we didn't just go to ReSource Pro and go, here's our stuff. We talked to them all throughout the implementation and said, what do you see working? What do you not see working? What areas are you leaning in with clients? How are you helping to support other users in Epic? They were instrumental to our planning for the migration so that we could make sure we could work together well. And we got to the point this past year that our local service teams are rarely doing data input into our agency management system, aside from they should be doing their own activities. But for the plan details and rates and renewing plan lines, our local service team is rarely touching that. And to be honest, I am so excited that they're rarely touching it, To get 14 people at ReSource Pro to do it consistently is so much easier than to get 350 people spread across how many ever different offices to do it consistently. So this has been a big win for us. An example, just a very specific example from this past fourth quarter, we pushed our teams, we said, look, you've got to give this up and let ReSource Pro renew plan lines in Epic. We've just got to do it. It's not, that's not bringing value to our clients, but it needs to get done. Let's let ReSource Pro do it so that you can focus on client work. But in order to do that, right, just like every other EB agency out there, like 2/3 or so of our business renews January 1, and we're like, how do we get this done? We pushed our teams to give the renewal decision to ReSource Pro right away. As soon as we have the client decision, just let ReSource Pro know. Were we perfect? Absolutely not. Were we a lot better? Yes, because our spike in requests to renew plan lines moved to November and December instead of historically being in January, kind of after the fact. But the volume was still overwhelming. Honestly, we were a little too successful. But what happened is Emily, our ReSource Pro team lead, reached out to us and said, look, we can if we do a whole lot of overtime, but we can't get all of these all the way done by January 1st. What do you think if we renew the shell of the policies, so the rates, carriers, the essential stuff for financials and having the basics in there, so that that's done by January 1st, and then we come back and do the rest of it? And we said, great idea, let's do it. And they got them all done by the timeline that we needed. And in fact, that worked so well, we have now changed our renewal process that we always renew the shell first, then do some other auditing before we update the plan details and things along those lines. So through Emily's reaching out with a suggestion to handle volume, we've updated our processes to something that works better for both of us. And ultimately, that's what we want from our business partners when we're working together. So before I go back, we are going to get back to the process, right, of implementing changes. Before I do that, I grew up on the service side of the business. I cannot move forward without addressing timing. How many of you have been around long enough that you remember we used to have a slow period? Yeah, what happened to that? And historically, Q4 started in September. So we still were a little off on how to read a calendar because that's not the calendar quarter. But fourth quarter started, the heavy peak season started in September. Now, slow season, what is that? Doesn't happen anymore, right? That concept is completely gone. And what we, for some reason, still refer to as fourth quarter is this second half of the calendar year. It starts earlier and earlier every year. So when you have your list of things that you're going to tackle, and your team is putting together the new templates or SOPs or whatever it is to tackle your problems, make sure your implementation timeline is before July 1st. Because no matter what, anytime we change something, even if we change it for the better and everyone's on board, it's going to be better, you're going to have a period of adjustment where you're going to lose a little bit of efficiency. There's a concept referred to as the implementation dip. It's kind of like when you were a kid and you were learning to ride a bike without training wheels, right? When you got to that point, you probably were already at the point you were zipping up and down the sidewalk with your training wheels on, making all that racket as they rotated back and forth. You were fast, even though you had training wheels. And then your parents took the training wheels off, and you were slow and wobbly, maybe skinned your knees a few times, right? Before you got to the point that you could zip up and down the sidewalk faster than you ever could with those training wheels. It's the same concept. It's way better to ride the bike without the training wheels, but it takes a little time to get used to it. And we need to keep that in mind when we're implementing change, even minor change on our teams. We cannot afford the loss, even a little bit of a loss of efficiency for future gain during our busiest time of year. So out of respect to your teams, please, please, please do it before July 1st. So the last piece, when you think about how do we tackle this volume in the middle of fourth quarter, we also need to think about our clients have an impact on this too. Work with your clients to develop a strategy. Don't wait till we have the renewal. Talk to them in advance about what we're trying to achieve. Understand their business needs and build a timeline with them. I normally start with, when do you want to do open enrollment? And then work our way backwards to what do we need to accomplish to be able to do open enrollment at that time. But then a key piece of that is we've got to be willing to have difficult conversations with our client. That if they want to do open enrollment starting October 1st, and we all agreed in that case, we need your renewal decision by, call it September 15th, right? Enough time to do benefit guides, to get them printed, whatever we need. And here comes September 28th, and we finally get the decisions. Is it reasonable to start open enrollment on October 1st? We have to be willing to have a discussion with a client that's, hey, yeah, we can do this, but we need a little time. And a lot of times we shy away from that, and that scramble to try to get what we plan to have 14 days to do done in 2 is what really kills our team during that time frame. So sometimes we can't get away from it. I'm not telling you we always can, but we've got to be able to, again, develop those partnerships with our clients that they understand a little bit of give and take so that we can get it all done. Also keep in mind, it never hurts to ask. Is there, you review where the client's running, is there a no-shop offer that we should take to the carrier? Carriers love that. Get it done early for everyone, it's great. Can the carrier release the renewal earlier? Worst case scenarios, they're gonna say no, right? Why does it hurt to ask that? I will tell you, if you're gonna ask that question, ask early, like now's the time. They start that process super early. Follow up until you get a decision. But then realize there's some give and take. If they release the renewals 30 days earlier to you, they're going to reasonably expect that you're going to get back to them with decisions 30 days earlier. There might be some outliers, right? But we got to be willing to have that give and take there. Also talk to your clients. Very few, typically publicly traded or where they have a board, maybe a public entity, they need to have the whole package tied up with a bow before they can make a decision on anything. They have to know all the pieces and parts before they can make a decision. Most other clients are more than happy to decide on a piece of it as it comes in. So if I get the ancillary early, make that decision, start the renewal process and get implementation going. They can start their Ben admin system updates. It's a win for everyone. And then also ask yourself, do we really need a meeting? I can't tell you, I worked on predominantly a self-funded book of business. I can't tell you how many times I had the reinsurance renewal show up on my desk. It's all ready to go. The team spreadsheeted everything, and you look at it and you're like, well, there's a clear winner here. Like, this is a no-brainer situation. But our meeting with the client is 2 weeks away. Pick up the phone and call them. Some of them may still want to meet. Most of them, if they have experience in the self-funded market and they've been doing this for a while, they're like, send me the disclosure right now. Like, if we have that big of a winner. So remember that we should ask these questions. It never hurts. The other piece that I want to tie to clients is don't forget to tie your internal process improvements to how it makes things better for the client. Anything you're improving internally should be able to make you deliver faster, more accurate, whatever it may be. You need to tie it to the impact to the client because that helps you avoid the comment, I don't have time for that. I have clients to take care of. You have to tie the things that you're working on to the client. So then it's go time, right? We've reflected, we've refined our processes, we tested it, we rolled it out before July 1. We've had time to work through it and get through the kinks and the bugs in the way, and it's gonna happen every year. All of a sudden you're gonna be sitting at your desk and you're gonna be like, it's fourth quarter, what happened? It's here. Every year it's a little bit different timing-wise. It seems to be earlier and earlier somehow, but it's coming every year. And your biggest challenge is going to be when you get to fourth quarter and it's here, it's go time, the peak is happening. It is so easy to fall back into old habits. You have to figure out ways to continue to support the team throughout that really busy season to make sure we don't fall into those old habits. Personally, I'm more of a carrot person than stick. And that goes a long way during the stress of fourth quarter. It could be just a small public recognition. Hey, Susie, I know you're doing a great job implementing this new thing. It could be showing up at someone's desk with a cup of coffee for them, thanking them for what they're doing or acknowledging the fact that they are adopting and using this new process. Another great one is bringing in lunch for the team to thank them all at once, because we do not need to add hangry to stress the fourth quarter, right? We all have to eat, and it's a great way to just say thank you to your team for the efforts that they're making and continuing. So definitely thinking of those rewards. And when you have to, having the sidebar difficult conversations to make sure we get people steered back in the right direction. The other way to manage it through fourth quarter is to make sure you've created an environment where it's applauded when someone raises their hand and says, I am drowning, just cannot do it anymore, like I can't get it all done. So often that can be looked at as a weakness, and we've got to get away from that. That has to be looked at as a strength on your team. Depending on your team structure, ours is very specialized. Each role, everyone has a peak during the second half of the year, but the timing's always a little bit different. So almost always when someone raises their hand and says, I just can't, there's a teammate that has, probably in a slightly different role, that has a little bit of extra capacity. I've seen health strategists doing open enrollment meetings. I've had advocates doing open enrollment meetings. Yes, they're all licensed with us, so we can do that. Personally, I've done it all in peak season. I've proofed spreadsheets, I've followed up with carriers, I've requested quotes, I've created benefit guides. And almost every time I'm doing those types of things, which do not at all fall into my role anymore, I've been asked, why are you doing that? It's like this, why? Why would you do that? It implies it isn't my job. That is one of my biggest pet peeves, is the statement, it isn't my job to do that. At the end of the day, my answer is always the same. It needs to get done, and it takes us all to make it through. No one on the team can be above getting anything done. That's how you continue that culture that you're building of teamwork and collaboration. I can't stand in front of a group of people without talking about communication. It's always my soapbox to talk about communication. So that is one of the biggest challenges we probably all have on our team. How many, what's your percentage, do you think, of the issues when people come to you, for those of you who are people managers, how often does it boil down to communication? A lot, right? Mine, it's probably in the high 90s. When you really get all the way into it, someone didn't tell something, we forgot to tell them about a change in plan. Like, it almost always boils down to communication. And we have to remind our teams, sometimes on a daily basis, that we have to over-communicate, especially when we're super busy. You have got to make sure everyone knows what is going on. And we have to make sure our team is constantly reminded that communication should be delivered in a kind and respectful manner. Because if that is our expectation, when the moment comes that the stress shines through, and maybe that communication isn't quite as kind and respectful as it should be, it allows us to assume positive intent from that person, because we know that expectation is generally kind and respectful. But at some point, we're just going to have to remember that we got to hold on tight, and we made it through last year, right? Every year we manage to do it, and sometimes you just need that perspective. The moment comes every peak season. What I talked about today of reflecting and refining processes, implementing those changes, talking to your clients about strategy, and then living through it all again, this is not a one and done. Every year, we need to strive to be a little bit better than the last year. Every year you make minor tweaks. There's going to be the occasional year that there's a major tweak in there, or a major change. But every year, you have to do this process all over again to rebuild the team camaraderie, to look at what are our new challenges now, and how do we address those challenges this year. Because again, the goal every year is to get a little bit better than last year. And maybe at some point in my career, we will not just survive peak season, but we will actually thrive through it. As you saw today, I didn't tell you any solutions. Anyone catch that? I didn't actually give you, here's what you should implement. That is because your team's challenges aren't the same as my team's challenges. It's about the process to develop solutions to your unique challenges. I never profess to have all of those answers. There is absolutely no one-size-fits-all solution that's going to be perfect for our peak seasons. But if you've hired right on your team, those solutions are already within your four walls, or at least the ideas for those solutions, and you just have to ask the right questions to bring them forward. So as you have time networking throughout the rest of today and tomorrow, talk to those around you about what they've done, what ideas have they had, because that really can be a lot of the value of this type of event, is the little nuggets you walk away from from those conversations, the ideas you can bring back to your team. Because while we aren't going to have all the solutions, we're part of the team too, right? We can bring some of them, and sitting in a room like this and talking to other professionals in our industry and gleaning those little ideas can become the next thing that works for your team. So hopefully I will get a chance to talk to all of you throughout the next day and a half. Thank you.